Just 3 short months ago, a former Super Bowl MVP was at home in New Jersey playing with his kids. But as the NFL playoffs approach, he now finds himself at the center of one of the best feel-good stories ever. We're talking about none other than January Joe himself, Joe Flacco. The 38-year-old gunslinger has propelled the Cleveland Browns into the playoffs for the first time since 2020. He's putting the rest of the league on notice. How is he turning back the clock? Stay tuned to find out. Making it happen. Before Browns fans ever went wacko for Flacco, the Browns front office had to make the move to get him to Cleveland. Prior to Flacco's arrival, Cleveland's season looked like it might be at a tipping point. The Browns were dealing with injuries everywhere and had missed out on re-signing another seasoned quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who opted to stay with the Washington Commanders at the trade deadline. Things looked bleak. Even after a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers on November 19th, there were still questions at the quarterback position. DTR won the game against Pittsburgh in his second career start, but he looked far from solid. And PJ Walker was a turnover machine, averaging nearly 2 turnovers a game in his starts for the Browns. And once he was signed to the team's practice squad the day after the Steelers game, Flacco didn't have much time to get used to his new team. The Browns suffered a bad loss to Denver the next week. DTR was put into the concussion protocol, and Joe Flacco was thrust into the spotlight. And the rest is history. Who let the dogs out? Most quarterbacks in Joe Flacco's situation are just happy to be playing football again. Their game manager's looking for one last shot in the league. But Joe hasn't just managed the game for Cleveland, he's unleashed the Browns' offense. Before he signed with the team on November 20th, the Browns were doing their best to patch their season together with wins from different quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, PJ Walker, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But once Joe Flacco made his first start as a Brown against the Rams on December 3rd, that's when he showed he still had something left in the tank. Even though he threw a game-sealing interception, his stat line for the game was solid. 23 for 44 for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. After that loss to the Rams, he's been on a tear, and so have the Browns. The team has gone 4-0 in their last 4 games, with wins over the Jaguars, Bears, Texans, and Jets. Not only that, but Flacco has thrown for a season total of 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and over 1,500 yards. He also became the first Browns quarterback ever to throw for over 300 yards in 4 straight games. But beyond putting up impressive numbers and making explosive, highlight reel plays, there's one big reason Flacco is finding the fountain of youth in Cleveland. Or more specifically, 5 big reasons. Offensive lineman, a quarterback's best friend. Before a quarterback can torch a defense, he needs good protection. And Cleveland has done a fantastic job of protecting Joe Flacco during his first 5 games with the team. The Browns have been banged up with many different injuries this season, but during the team's remarkable run to the playoffs with Joe Flacco, a makeshift offensive line is looking like one of the most solid units in the league right now. Led by mainstays Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, the Browns' offensive line has been superb in keeping Joe Flacco upright and giving him time to throw. During an interview with Pat McAfee, Flacco gave the Browns' O-line all the credit in the world for letting him make the most of his second chance in the league. "These guys are doing a great job protecting me. I have a lot of room in the pocket right now," he said. "I feel great." And not only is Joe Flacco staying upright, he's putting the fear of God into opposing secondaries every time he lets the ball fly. How? Let's take a look. Flacco's key targets and receivers. Despite only being a member of the Browns for a short time, Flacco has developed an amazing amount of chemistry with Cleveland's #1 wideout Amari Cooper and their big tight end, David Njoku, which has led to some explosive plays. On Christmas Eve during the team's game against the Houston Texans, Flacco and Cooper showed off their connection as Coop caught 11 passes for a mind-blowing 265 yards. This broke a decade-old record set by former Browns wideout Josh Gordon in 2013, when he exploded for 261 yards against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Cooper has also become the first Cleveland wide receiver in history to post back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. No one in the 78-year history of the Browns has ever done that. David Njoku has been a big play option for the Browns as well. Flacco has consistently relied on him as a sure-handed big target. The 246-pound beast has revived his career in Cleveland as he snagged 81 catches for 882 yards and 6 touchdowns, all career highs. Now, with Joe Flacco directing the offense and throwing him the ball, Njoku is looking like a top 5 tight end in the NFL at just the right time as the Browns head into the playoffs. Along with Njoku and Cooper, wideouts Marquise Goodwin and Elijah Moore have been instrumental with getting Flacco into a groove, and running backs Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt have given him a true complement of weapons. A unique contract. Joe Flacco may not be making Super Bowl MVP level money anymore, but he's still making bank. It's nowhere remotely near his teammate Deshaun Watson's $230 million deal. But the contract Flacco has still gives him a little extra incentive, even though he doesn't need any. Flacco's $1.8 million base deal is loaded with bonuses. He's already managed to hit some of these. For every regular season game Joe Flacco won as the starting quarterback for the Browns, he'd earned $75,000. Beyond the regular season, January Joe can really cash in. If the Browns win the wild-card game, he'll make $250,000. From there, it doubles if the Browns win in the divisional round to $500,000. If he gets Cleveland to their first Super Bowl in franchise history, he'll make a cool $1 million. If he leads the Browns to an improbable Super Bowl victory and World Championship, Flacco's run will not only go down as one of the greatest stories in sports history, but he'll also have a fat $4 million wad of cash to show off too. Super Bowl contenders? So far, the only quarterback who's had success winning the Super Bowl this late in their career has been the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. Brady won the 7th and final ring of his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the age of 43. But Joe Flacco has as good a shot as any to be at the top of the football mountain in early February 2024. While we've already mentioned all of Flacco's offensive weapons, the one key to victory that we haven't mentioned yet may be the biggest key of them all. The Browns' defense under first-year coordinator Jim Schwartz has been the league's best all year. Led by Myles Garrett, Cleveland combines a ferocious pass rush with opportunistic play by an athletic group of defensive backs, including Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Juan Thornhill, and Ronnie Hickman. If the Browns play their best, not only will Joe Flacco continue to ball out, they could start to mirror one of the most memorable Super Bowl teams of the past, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. That Ravens team not only had a suffocating defense led by Ray Lewis in his prime, but they also had a journeyman quarterback in Trent Dilfer directing the offense. In 2000, the Ravens leaned heavily on their defense on the way to a 12-4 record. And they crushed the New York Giants in Super Bowl 35 to win their first championship in franchise history. Time will tell if the 2023 Browns will repeat the success of the 2000 Ravens and hoist the Lombardi Trophy, but the similarities are certainly there. Like Ray Lewis that season, Cleveland pass rusher Myles Garrett is currently enjoying the best year of his career. He's in his prime. If he wins Defensive Player of the Year, that's another accomplishment he'll have like Lewis as well. The Ravens also had an incredibly sharp group of defensive backs in 2000, led by Rod Woodson. Flash forward to 2023, and Cleveland has a talented group of defensive backs as well. The 2000 Ravens and 2023 Browns are also both wildcard teams, who finished the season with 11 or more wins. But here's another interesting fact. For as fondly as fans remember the 2000 Ravens, some might forget that they weren't a division champion. They were a wildcard team. This meant that they had to win 4 straight games to capture the Lombardi Trophy, and by the time they met the Giants in the Super Bowl, they weren't intimidated at all, and they absolutely destroyed New York, on the way to one of the most dominant Super Bowl wins in the history of the game. The 2023 Browns have a remarkably similar situation to that Ravens team, but Joe Flacco is the one major difference when comparing those two teams. Trent Dilfer performed well enough to win a ring with Baltimore, and will always be remembered as one of the only players who wasn't a franchise quarterback to win a Super Bowl. But like we mentioned earlier in the video, Joe Flacco makes the Browns legitimately explosive on offense. Most teams need a franchise quarterback to compete for and win Super Bowls. Other rarer teams are built well enough and resilient enough to win without them. All they need is competent quarterback play. Joe Flacco does all that for the Browns and more. 38 times the charm. January Joe has jammed a wedge into the revolving door at quarterback in Cleveland. Thanks to his wealth of experience, leadership abilities, and his still impressive arm strength, he now has some people dreaming of what could be waiting for the Browns at the end of this wild and wacky season. The Browns have had 38 starting quarterbacks since 1999, more than any other team in that time span. But none of them have gone 10-5 in the playoffs, had a 15-year career, or won a Super Bowl MVP. Joe Flacco gives Cleveland something they've desperately needed for decades, a solid quarterback who's not only been to the playoffs, but who has been at the top of the NFL mountain. Now the question is, does January Joe have one more memorable run left in the tank? If he does, he might cause Cleveland to throw a party that would make the 2016 Cavs championship celebration look like a small-town Labor Day parade. What do you think? Does Joe Flacco still have the tools to push the Browns over the hump? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, smash the like button and subscribe button for more great content. And as always, thanks for watching.